game in one of those sharpest continuations, which is essentially Sicilian defense. So I started to look early for some offbeat lines. I mean, back then when I started to work on it, I quickly discarded to play d4. So I came up with this idea. First, I did my database for the modern chess, the so-called anti-Najdorf variation, which is e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop b5, which is a very logical move. So the next step, logically, was to do the part for the Rossolimo. And I was thinking also about some other options. So why exactly I chose this one? So yeah, I'm gonna try to move forward with the moves. I hope you see all of it. I hope you hear me fine. If you do not, please write in the chat, and Grigor and Peter, they are going to help me out. So yeah, knight f3, knight c6, and the main reason, I mean, of course, uh, I have played quite some share of the Open Sicilian with d4, but the main reason why I did not like the d4 move was because there was always the so-called the Sveshnikov or the Chelyabinsk line. So 3-5, knight b5, and d6. And believe me, I played it quite a number of times, and I was always feeling really awkward and not familiar with the position. Now, especially since world champion Magnus Carlsen is playing this with black, he has proven that it's a very much playable line. It is played at the highest level, and it doesn't really suit my style. And I believe that's what we are, all of us are looking for, that we are playing the opening which suits our style. So I wrote the database, and essentially this is the topic of today's webinar, the Sicilian Rossolimo. This is for the positional players mostly. So if you are looking for a very sharp game, I mean, probably it's a better way to play some of the open Sicilians, but mostly I focus on the positional play. So the other alternative, really, instead of the bishop b5, I was looking at was c3, some sort of a Lapin, but I believe that the Lapin isn't really great. I mean, that's my personal opinion. Mostly because of the knight of 6 e5, knight e5, takes, and d6, which is actually what I play with myself with black, and that is the reason. I do not believe in the Lapin as a great weapon. I mean, of course, opinions differ. I know there are obviously the Sveshnikovs, both of them, Yevgeny and Vladimir, both of them actually are from Latvia, but I'm not a fan. So I was looking for something new, something offbeat, which would give me a simple play. And I came up with this bishop b5. Obviously, I did not invent it, but I liked the positional approach that I simply develop the pieces. I intend to finish my development very quickly, and I plan to play something like c3 and d4. Usually that's the idea if black is slow enough to allow me to do it. Or the second alternative is I can take on c6. When I started to play this, it was way before I did my database for modern chess. I believe my first continuation here was, after g6, which is the main move, which I'm going to cover very shortly. I was focusing not on bishop takes and c6. I was playing castle. So probably those Latvian players who are following me in this webinar, they might remember it. I've played it in some Latvian tournaments, and I was following this continuation, Rook e1, which is sort of the old line. And back then I played a number of games after knight f6, e5, knight e5, knight c3, knight c7, bam, bam, bam. I mean, this is a known theory and supposedly not very much harmless for black. Yeah, so I realized that I need to change something. And I started to look at this possibility to take on e6. I'm sorry, on c6. So of course there's a move g6, there's a move e6, but I came to the conclusion that I cannot really apply the same pattern for both of the moves. So I'll explain you why is that. So for example, I mean, let's say black is going to play something like e6, right? Which is obviously one of the main continuations in this line, but at this moment it's not exactly popular. I mean, why play e6? It might seem a bit odd, but black intends to play knight g7, protect the knight on c6, and after a6, he wants on capture on c6, take with the knight. So that's at least the big idea. So logically, the question is, why can't I take on c6? And actually, I've played quite a number of games myself in my practice. Bishop takes on c6. Yeah, d takes, of course, makes little sense here. I mean, this is a really terrible position, something like e5, potentially knight goes to e4. There's a weakness on d6, so this is something what, I mean, black usually wants to avoid, right? So after, I'm sorry, yeah, after e6, bishop takes on c6, b takes, black destroys his pawn center, and white tries to organize some kind of a play against these pawns. But I discarded this idea. I mean, it's fun for a couple of tries, but I realized that after d3, knight e7, I believe that's the main move in this position. It's been some time when I've checked this theoretical line. And after queen e2, d6, e5, and knight f5. If I remember correctly, that's a rather rare line, unless something has changed in the past couple of months, which I really doubt. And I just did not like this position because I'm myself sort of a fan of two bishops, although, I mean, I did voluntarily give up the bishop on c6, but I just did not see how to properly defend against the knight d4 threat. So I don't know, something like very quickly, e takes on d6, bishop d6, and at some point black is going to play knight d4, and I have to undouble the pawns on c5 and c6, or I have to play c3, which is a weakness on d3. I mean, this of course is playable, but I mean, that is my backstory why I was not really looking at this. Bishop takes on c6, and I realized that I need to try something else. So this is when I went to my attention came this rather strange move, d4. And if you would check the database right now, I mean, maybe now, or again, the situation has changed, but something like a year ago or 1.5 years ago, when this move was played, it was a very rare move. It was just being played at that moment. It was gaining really some attention. And it's sort of a paradoxical move because, I mean, I did say that we are aiming for an anti-Sicilian approach, right? But there are sometimes some exceptions. So if I feel that I get a very good open position, I very often, by the way, in my database, I do recommend switching to open position because it's not like, since I'm recommending anti-Sicilian approach, I'm going to stick to anti-Sicilian approach in all of my lines, no matter what. It doesn't work like that. So if I see some opportunity, try to do something better. If it involves at some moment to switch to open Sicilian, that's what I'm usually advocating. And the reason why d4 was so nice, that after c takes d4, knight d4, I've spent the tempo on bishop b5, but black has misplaced his knight on e7. So, I mean, typically the Sicilian defense, the knight obviously is not on e7 and on g6 later, but it goes to f6. And I figured out that this should be a really great position to play. Something like, I believe, what was the move here? There are a couple of moves. Queen b6 was the main move some time ago, but obviously the theory is changing. And after knight c6, b takes on c6, I believe, is the most played continuation. I just played bishop d3. Yeah, I was inspired actually by Fabiano Caruana, who played his 2017 World Cup match against Luka Lenic. So he was part of an inspiration from my database. And this is a rather, I think, dangerous position for black, because not only I get my Marozzi bind, it's not a secret, I'm a big fan of the Marozzi bind. I do believe in its power, that it really limits your opponent's opportunities to play active. But there's also this annoying plan to play queen h5. And yet again, undermining this knight's position on e7. So usually black plays something like knight g6 here, here, and typically, if I remember correctly, or I already forgotten, right? But at least I remember the idea. Yeah, this is a specific line, but the idea was to play queen h5, and sometimes white can cause some troubles with the blatant checkmate idea, f4, rook f3, rook h3. But obviously, I mean, queen standing on b6. But that was the big idea, why the knight on g6 actually is misplaced. And I was playing this line, and I wrote my database, which was 2018 something. Maybe it was the second part of the year. I don't already remember the date. But I wrote an update for the database, and I went last year to United States. And I immediately happened to play 2 games in this line. And I don't know if my opponents had read it or not, but both of them played knight g6. And essentially, I got a position which I had covered in my database, which I thought it's very great. But when I started really to look closer to this position, it's covered in my database. So if you have it, you can check it more closely. But in those actual games, I realized it's not so simple. By the way, here, I'm not so sure if rook a to d1 is better or rook f to d1. I played both of them. I scored 1.5 out of 2, but I was not feeling really comfortable. So afterwards, I managed to find some advantage in this line, but I was thinking maybe this is too complex, because I'm recommending sort of an easier play, seeking some kind of simple positional approach. So it made me think maybe this is not the right approach. So actually, I played these 2 games within the time frame of something like 1 week. Yeah, I played in Las Vegas. What's the title of the tournament? I don't remember. Last year, June. Then I went to St. Louis, Summer Chess Classic, and there you go in the second or third round. I already played the same line. I thought, okay, why didn't I check it more closely? Because I played like a week ago. Although I got good results, I did not like the outcome. So I do recommend this continuation in my database, but I constantly re-evaluate the arising positions. It made me think maybe actually after knight g7, a more simpler approach is rook e1. So this is actually an older move than d4. It's not as fashionable. So the big idea is that I plan to play c3 and d4. The immediate c3, for some reason, I think it wasn't so great, because I have some problems with this bishop. Something like bishop a4, b5, bishop c2, bishop b7. And I cannot really play d4, right, immediately. Something like here, and knight b4. That's the standard idea. And black usually gets the bishop. He has an easy game. And, well, I thought that's not nice. So this is why I got my attention on rook e1. So rook e1, c3, d4, and after a6, bishop f1. d5 takes. There's also queen d5, but after knight d5, d4, here, bishop e3, I do get some kind of a little positional advantage. Knight d5, here, takes, and the typical idea usually is to get the bishop to the long diagonal. The light square bishop, you have to get to the long diagonal. Some sort of, it's my favorite expression, a Catalan bishop. Yeah, obviously it's not a Catalan bishop, but I usually somehow I describe this good bishop as a Catalan bishop, because in the Catalan line, I mean, usually black is struggling with a bad bishop against a good bishop. Yeah, so that's the backstory. I mean, why I'm choosing this line over others, and I constantly I change my mind, because let's say if something is looking really great at some time, and usually it remains the same, I do re-evaluate things after some time. So let's say something like after 1 year, I have different thoughts already. That's completely normal, because theory evolves all the time. Right, so let's go back to this position. So e6, bishop takes on c6. Like I said, I did not like this line when black immediately plays d6, e5, and knight f5. So I quickly discarded it. If you can find improvement there, I mean, you can go ahead. Black does have those double pawns on c6 and c5. And rook e1, I think actually the most annoying continuation here for white to prove that he has an advantage is knight d4, yeah, which I also have covered in my database. And after knight d4 takes, it sort of feels that the rook on e1 is misplaced for some action, although white's game is still more simple. Something like here, here, here on f4, with some future action at the king side. Queen h5, knight f3. But I mean, still black is probably just fine. But I believe this is probably one of the best approaches black can choose. And yeah, of course, it was not easy always to prove that white has an advantage. That's, of course, the eternal question. Which is the line where white has the promised advantage in all of the lines? I think the honest answer is probably that there is no advantage in any line. So all that matters is that you are playing the lines which you like, which suit your playing style. And that's why sometimes it makes me a bit laugh when people are trying all of the possible moves in the open Sicilian Najdorf, trying to prove that there is some sort of advantage, although probably everybody already knows there is no advantage for white. So very often it comes down to the element of surprise. So that yet again is yet another reason why it's such a great idea to play some sort of offbeat lines to surprise your opponent. Yeah, so e6, definitely I've met in my practice way less than g6. g6 by far is the most played continuation. There are, of course, other moves like queen c7, queen b6, knight f6. Yeah, by the way, here knight f6 seems to be a completely normal move because black is developing the other knight. But I discovered that here actually black needs to be careful because he cannot really go knight d4, which might be some sort of a resemblance to the, what was it, the four knights variation, right? e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop b5, knight d4. There is such a line. But here actually knight d4 is not so good because of the e5, takes. It seems that black is fine. I mean, he just won the two bishops, right? So the point here is that suddenly after knight d5 seems that black is completely fine. He's going to play knight c7. He has two bishops. Boom! There is a knight g5. And suddenly it's very difficult to defend against the queen f3, knight f7 threats, queen h5 intermezzo move. And I did some analysis here, and black is suffering. I mean, he cannot play e6 because of the knight e4 and knight d6. I apologize about the arrows, but yeah, and after f6, it's still queen f3 and some problems. So I don't remember what was after knight c7. Yeah, knight c7, e takes on f6. So some funny lines, but black is always suffering. Yeah, these are some old analysis I did a long time ago, but black is, yeah, just not doing great. Yeah, so for example, that is one of the tricks, one of the beauties of the offbeat lines, that they're not so well known, and knight e4 feels like a natural move. And of course, I mean, there are other moves like d6, but then again, after d6, I think I had written it down. No, I don't have it here, but d6 typically runs into e5. And again, you try to get the minimal advantage of the double pawns, something like, I don't know, queen c7, takes, and bishop c4. So definitely it seems that black is struggling. I mean, something like, I don't know, d3, bishop e3, at some point try to get the pawn to c5, and it does feel that white has managed to get more. Right, I mean, but we don't have so much time to dwell on this. So yeah, so the point is that essentially what I want to say, that after castle, knight g7, d4 is very much fine. I do recommend it. It brings some interesting game, but probably rook e1 is, yeah, more positional. So probably I need to write a database and update my database about this one. And yeah, and actually I've played already a couple of games with rook e1. I don't remember, was it in practical games or online games, but sort of it feels to my style. Yeah. So again, I mean, my taste changed after I wrote d4. I discovered that rookie one feels more to my playing style. Yeah, other lines, queen b6, queen c7, usually that continuation is played to avoid some mainstream theory. Queen c7 is, by the way, fine. I've met number of times myself queen b6. So the idea is try to stop the d4 pawn from advancing, and black just wants to get the bishop on b5. So knight c3 feels like a normal move. And again, knight d4, I'm sorry, knight d4 doesn't really work because takes, and knight d5, you cannot take on b5 because there is a fork. And after queen d6, I believe there was actually some high-level games here. Black already can lose it on the spot. Queen d8. Yeah, I don't know if you saw it or not. Can you guess the next move? If you saw the move, okay, maybe it's not for you, but yeah. So this would be actually a nice one, nice a puzzle to solve. This is a non-theoretical mistake. I mean, it seems that black is fine. He's going to play e6 the next move. And now suddenly white uncorks queen h5. Yeah, I'm sorry if somebody, knight f4. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, from time to time, I'll try to jump into the chat, but since we don't have so much time, I won't have so much time to follow the chat. Occasionally, I'll try to switch it on, but we have to explain the basics at least in this short time frame. So the threat is queen e5. And there's no way to parry it. It's unbelievable. Yeah, something like, I believe there was some very strong GM level game. Yeah, a6 and queen e5. There you go. Goodbye. Ilya Smirin beat, yeah, somebody. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, after queen b6, knight c3, and let's say e6, you do stake on c6. Again, the point is you have to understand the typical idea is that black intends after e6 to play knight g7. So you don't want to wait for that, and you are happily taking on c6. Now d takes on c6 makes little sense. Black could play b takes on c6, but then the question is, what is the queen doing on b6? So he could have went for this line like a move earlier, and black has made a useless move, queen b6, and we have made a useful move, knight c3. So queen takes on c6 and d4. Yet again, this is one of those moments when I believe that if you have a favorable position to switch to the open Sicilian, you should do it. Otherwise, there's no way how you can use in your advantage your lead in development. Because, I mean, essentially, white is ahead in development. Here, queen d4, and black needs to play it very, very carefully, not to get in trouble. Yeah, so the same position can arise after queen c7. I mean, of course, I mean, if black plays it out perfectly, then I mean, he holds it. I mean, that's chess. I mean, black can make some sort of a mistake and or inaccuracy in the opening, and if he plays it out perfectly, then it's a draw in the end. I mean, chess is a drawn game. I do believe that, but it's in our power to make for our opponents the life as difficult as possible. Yeah, so knight a5. Okay, I'll answer very quickly a question. Somebody wrote to me that he is playing the interesting move, knight a5. Actually, very quickly about it. Yeah, I did not mention it. Igor Kovalenko played against me in one of our Blitz games, I believe online. We played it this year. I think this is the moment when you can switch to the Alyapin. I mean, knight a5 makes no sense. I mean, you just play something like, I don't know, either castle immediately or c3, a6, bishop goes on e2, either it's d5, either it's knight f6. I mean, it makes close to no sense because essentially black is down 2 tempos in the Alyapin. Yeah, so of course, I mean, for some fun, for some blitz games, knight a5, try to confuse the opponent is possible, but it gives you a lot of freedom. Right. So what did not mention? Of course, there are some not so popular moves as e5. Everything I already covered, so I won't really dwell on that. So let's go to the g6, the most important stuff. So g6, like I explained before, I did play before I was writing my database. I was playing quite a lot of short castle, bishop g7, and rook e1. But like I already mentioned before, I was experiencing some troubles with knight f6, and I came to the conclusion that I need to change something. And there is also the second move, which is e5. There is obviously more continuation, so I'll switch this position slightly later when I'll start to explain the rising pawn structures and the positions. But somehow, I don't know, my attention came down to the move bishop takes on c6. Obviously, I mean, I do get something out of it. And I think I did not really have any alternatives, although I believe I've tried everything. For example, if I could try to play something like c3, which seems to be like a completely normal move, because that's what I was advocating actually in the beginning, that if you have the possibility to take the center, you should try to do it. But here specifically, it doesn't work. I mean, it is possible to play it, but black doesn't really have any trouble. After knight f6, rook e1 castle, as soon as white plays d4, black plays d5. And that's the problem. I mean, there are obviously some waiting moves and like h3 and maybe queen e or something, but as soon as white plays d4, d5, e5, knight e4. So I didn't think this is a playable position, because very often it liquidates to some kind of a drawn position, and it didn't feel that I managed to pose my opponent some real problems. So I thought, okay, what else is there? I mean, instead of the rook e1, instead of the bishop takes on c6, there's also knight c3, which I didn't really like. I couldn't understand the position, so I just landed down on bishop takes on c6. Yeah. So yeah, g6, bishop takes on c6. So there are two major moves, which I covered in quite a good detail in my database. And the point here is that d takes on c6. Before Magnus Carlsen, he played in his world championship match against Fabiano Caruana. It wasn't really that popular, because I mean, I was following the evolution of the theory in this line, and before, b takes on c6 was sort of the main continuation and the more aggressive approach. But since Magnus in the match played d takes on c6 and pretty much with ease he held the black color, people started to play d takes on c6 more. But let's check first b takes on c6. I'll tell you honestly, when I was writing my database in the beginning, I did not know what to recommend here. I mean, I thought about this position: castle, bishop g7, and rook e1, which is the most popular line. And essentially, white is waiting for black to make a move. So, for example, something like, I'm not sure if I've covered it. Yeah, I have. So knight f6 seems to be like a normal move. Here, suddenly, white gets the upper hand. And it's a very easy game. So I thought, okay, I really like this position. It's such a great position. But unfortunately, black doesn't have to do this. So let's go back. Instead of the knight f6, black would try to play e5, which I also was very happy, because we get a similar position from the English opening with reverse colors, actually, with extra tempo. c3, d4. This is a very important idea. Otherwise, it's just great for black. And black is suffering. Again, either bishop f4 or bishop e3. And maybe bishop d4 exchange, the annoying bishop on g7. And I mean, it seems to be that this game is only for two results: either white wins or it's a draw. It seemed like it's a very nice continuation, but obviously there is this very annoying move, knight h6, a paradoxical move. Everybody knows this, obviously. Everybody who is not lazy enough to open chess base, everybody knows this move. So black avoids this idea that white could play e4, e5, and actually he could jump at the knight on f5. And what's more important, he is threatening some sort of move f7, f5. So I was thinking about this, really, castle, h3, but I just could not understand what I'm going to recommend to you after f5. And the game gets very sharp. e5, knight f7, and there's a big theory, obviously. There are crazy lines. For example, something like d3, now I just don't remember. I think it was something like e6, g5, h5, g4. I thought, how am I able to advocate some sort of a positional approach if black is playing so sharply? And I just quickly discarded this idea that this is not a positional anti-Sicilian approach. This is the Sicilian, the open, very sharp Sicilian. So I thought, okay, I mean, I cannot do this. I recommended d4. That's what I wrote in the original database. Takes, f6 is an old move. That's not something white should be concerned about because he easily plays. Typical plan is knight c3, bishop e3, knight e2, and f4. I believe I found sort of a formula for success. Yeah, but f6 is a move of the past. Now everybody plays after c takes, d5. Some time ago, this was not the most played move. Now everybody knows this move. And after e5, f6, black gets a very good game. I mean, of course, there are ways to surprise the opponent, but yet again, it felt that this position is not the way you should play it. And I did recommend playing immediately without h3 to play this position and just take on f6, yeah. So that was what included in my original database, and I just thought, okay, this is it's at least something. It's about equal, but at least you can play it out. It's not like immediate draw. There's some weaknesses on c6. Maybe you can manage to get the knight on c5, and I backed it down with some analysis and tried to make it work. But sort of inside, I was not really happy about it because I was not really happy with the result. And I was very quickly looking for improvements, and I noticed this very odd move, d4, which at the time was a very rare move. It was maybe played a couple of times. I don't know. It's paradoxical move. I mean, it makes zero sense because why just played bishop b5, bishop takes on c6? He gave up his bishop, he doubled the pawns, and now he's what? I mean, he's undoubling them. But I really like a particular quote of the former world champion Vishy Anand, who says he doesn't care if it's weird. If it works, it works. Right? So it became sort of a motto for me. If it really works, it works. And the point here, I'll explain in detail. So for example, something like c takes on d4, which might be the most standard approach. I take with the queen. Now black is suffering with the placement of the rook on h8, and after knight f6, here, you might recognize this position. It's something that I was actually advocating for in another line. Essentially, this is exactly the same setup. I think I'll have a slight time to gather some thoughts around the pawn structures, but this is a very nice position to reach. And thus, it's not exactly very popular, and black is not really rushing to go for this. Then there's the more aggressive move f6, which has caught some attention. Black intends to play knight h6, knight f7, bishop g7, and typically d6 is c5, something like that. But I felt that this should be sort of a success for white. And I backed down with some analysis that typically involves pushing the pawn c4, c5 as quickly as possible. And if black does play c5, then it does weaken the square on d5. Something like here, and knight h4. I thought that was rather a nice idea to, what was the idea? I think it was the idea to push f4, f5. Right. I mean, it's still a very complex battle, but I thought that was interesting. Quite offbeat line, And white has decent chances to actually fight for the initiative. And here, there was a surprise in the previous World Cup 2019. I believe that was the match for the first place when Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, he played in the tiebreak against Timur Ajabov for the, I think it was for the third place. He suddenly unleashed Queen A4. Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, then it was Maxim who was the first one to play it. And it's supported by the computer. It looks weird, but like Anand says, if it works, it works. And the big idea is to stop the early d6 c5 or any bishop a6. So essentially, the idea remains. And where is the game against? Yeah, it's here. And black was suffering, but I believe, yeah, the game ended in a draw. So I have not covered this in my database. This is a new thing, right? I mean, Vachier-Lagrave played it for the first time in the World Cup. I believe when I ran my database update, I already don't remember the exact date. I believe that was before that. So that's definitely very interesting. And then there's the other move after d4. After d4, black does not have to take on d4. Yeah, he can play bishop g7. And I would like to show you a very nice trick. I mean, I've won so many games like this. I mean, this is such a nice trick where even GMs have fallen into. So let's say bishop g7 seems to be standard move. D takes. You have to win the pawn back now. Queen a5 check. Knight d2. And it's very tempting to play bishop a6. Oh, that's a typical response. I mean, especially when you cannot really see how white is going to untangle from the pin, because c4 is simply bishop takes on c4. So maybe white misplayed this position. And this is when white unleashes rook b1. I mean, if you don't know this move for black, I mean, there's no way you're going to guess it. So something like queen c5 here, and bishop b2. Look at the bishop on a6. It's completely misplaced. And white is pushing e4, e5 very quickly and gains advantage. So instead of that, the whole point of rook b1 is that queen on a2 is very risky. b4, the threat is rook b3, rook a3 capture the queen. Yeah, bishop c4 was the only move, and some games have already been like this. Bishop b5 seems to be like a natural choice. Rook b3. Queen a6 is losing a piece after rook e3, rook a3 and c4. So something like, yeah, what was the move here? Knight f6 here, c4 here. Yeah, I'm sorry, c4 and bishop takes on c4. The move is knight g5, and that's it. Black loses a piece out of the opening here. I apologize. I mean, this line is complex, of course. I mean, it's very difficult, like, to jump in and say, oh, like this is completely winning. But this is a very nice trap in the opening, and I've caught my opponents twice or thrice already. At least in this one, I've seen in the database there are GMs falling into this. So maybe today this is more known, but this is such a beautiful move, rook b1 and b4. It's can be easily missed. So I mean, black has to avoid this. He has to take, I mean, yeah, after bishop a6, bishop a6 is a mistake, and queen c5, rook e1. Yeah, I proposed some novelties in my database, but after knight f6, I sort of analyzed to a great depth this position, and I came to the conclusion that black is suffering. And what's funny, actually, I got this position to play myself. Last year, I was playing in Aloysius Kvenis Memorial in France. And I got to play this position. I just wrote my database and I wrote the update. 1 month later, I managed to play exactly that. So you can check the database for the entire game. I did not win it. I blew away the win, but from the theoretical point of view, it was rather nice. Yeah, so, and actually there have been some developments, obviously, since I wrote the database update last year. I checked what's the updates, what people have played here, and I was sort of surprised that after bishop a6, which I proposed as a clever move order, d takes, check here, I was proposing a novelty, knight f6, because it's very interesting. And after now, rook b1, now it's a mistake, now it doesn't work, because there's knight e4, unfortunately. So I won't dwell in the details. But the point is, after knight f6, a3, here, c4, I was proposing knight takes on e4, very flashy sacrifice. And guess what? Somebody else already played it. I think it was Dmitry Yakovenko against David Paravian. They played in the World Rapid. I'm pretty sure one of them saw my database. Yeah, so the game was rather funny. The game ended in a draw, but I mean, I was advocating this rare move in a rarer move in an even rarer variation, and somebody actually played it. So actually, that's really is important for me and brings some joy when I see that the stuff that I've written and recommended at a high level, people are playing. I mean, not only high level, but that people find it useful. So that's the best gratitude you can give to the author. So thank you. I mean, if you're using my ideas in the actual games, I'm very happy to see that. So that means my time invested wasn't wasted. Yeah. So d4. Yeah. So I apologize. I mean, I don't have so much time to follow the chat. We'll have the possibilities to do the question and answers. But after that, because we are in a fast pace going through all of this stuff, so I'd like to also pay some attention to the d takes on c6. And d takes on c6 was obviously championed by the world champion Magnus Carlsen. And the idea is that black plays for a positional approach. B takes on c6, I believe it's more like waving a flag. I'm going to play very aggressively. D takes on c6 is the positional move. So after d3, bishop g7, yeah, bishop g7, h3, which is something that I recommend in my database. But there's one thing I've noticed. I mean, obviously in the database, I recommend h3, which leads to positional game. But I've noticed one thing when, at least from my own practice, when I'm playing against a grandmaster, almost nobody is going to play bishop g4. So I realized that actually maybe h3 might be a sort of waste of time. So the point obviously is after, let's say, if instead of the h3, I would do something like short castle. Black could play bishop g4, let's say knight d2, and after h3, I can recapture on f3 with the knight. So that was the idea why white actually is included in h3. But then I discovered that since I'm playing at a competitive level, for example, against some very strong 2-600 level player, and he plays d takes on c6, I know his reputation as a very sharp player. Probably he's not going to play bishop g4 and play for the draw. And this is why I started to experiment myself. I know I recommended h3, but I tried to get the position without the h3 because I know black is not going to play bishop g4 anyway, right? So essentially, this position is, there are a couple of important moments. If black plays e5 or he doesn't. So if black plays e5, let's say something like d3, yeah, let's go back to this main line, knight f6, knight c3, castle, castle, and knight e7. Typically, there are two ideas for white. If the position is closed, I mean, black is usually playing e7, e5, because he tries to stop white's advancement. I mean, white wants to play knight h2, f4, f5. And yet another reason why you want to position the bishop on e3 is that you want to play queen d2, bishop h6 to exchange the bishop, and then play knight h2, f4, f5. So very often black strategy revolves around playing e7, e5 and try to make it stop. But there is one nuance. Be very careful here. Not to mix up, because let me try to remember what was the correct order of moves. Yeah, bishop e3, castle. Sorry, b6, castle, and e5. This is a very favorable position for black, because now black can actually manage to play knight h5. And this is very important, because knight takes on e5 is met by knight takes on e4. And all of the tactics work very much in black's favor, unfortunately. So this bishop e3 is not like an automatic move. So yet again, let me explain. Something like you play short castle. Black cannot play immediately e5. White key cannot do that, because you just take, and the pawn is on c5 hanging. So it's a really, really nice nuance you have to watch out. So this is when black plays knight e7, and now you can safely play bishop e3, because there is no e5, knight h5 in two moves. So you have to watch out for this idea, e5 and knight h5. If black manages to do it, he is just doing fine. And this is a very important position. Probably I would want to talk about it for hours, but I've got something like 10 minutes. So essentially, there are two ideas. Either you play at the king side with f2, f4, knight h2, f4. But if black has already played e5, there is also the idea to play at the queen side. And the typical ideas involve a3 and b4. But here I don't think actually that's a great idea, because you have already slightly misplaced your position, and black could actually at some time to play f5, f4, g5. So the bishop on e3 is going to feel misplaced. So let me go back shortly about here. So let's say bishop g7, knight c, yeah, h3, and let's say black plays immediately e5. So that's one of the continuations. You could still insist by playing f4, but there's this very nice motif. Now you play a3, a3, b4, and try to organize a game at the queen side. So black could play a5, but this does weaken the b6 square and gives you a very easy game. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how really great it is, because black is still very solid. It's a very solid system to try to break, but there's just no real alternative, really. I mean, the other real alternative is to play f2, f4, but here it's not really recommended. But let's go back to the main line. So after h3, knight f6, here. Yeah, knight d7, bishop e3, e5, knight h2. We want to play f4, and I'm actually a big fan. Yeah, queen d2 is a nice prophylactic move, not to rush with the move f4, because f4 is not going anywhere. And after rook e8, I'm really a fan with mix up. No, I'm sorry, I mixed up. I mixed up, yeah. I'm a big fan of playing f4 and rook takes on f4, but I think I already mixed up, because these lines are extremely similar. Let me try to remember at which moment was it. Knight d7 here, e5 here. Wait a second. Oh, I'm sorry, I mixed up. Yeah, the idea was, I mean, I have to find the exact line, but one of the ideas of this line is why you want to play knight h2 and play f4. So I'll just show you the idea. Is you play f4, you recapture with the bishop. Before it was more known to take with the rook. Then you retreat with the bishop on g3. And the big idea is try to make work e5, knight e4. I believe actually I have one game analyzed here. Very shortly, I'm going to show it to you now. Maybe I'll get the correct order of the moves, because it's very tricky. Okay, like this. Yeah, so it's all about order of the moves, Right, and now you play f4, take with the bishop, not the rook, with the bishop. And after knight a6, bishop g3. So it seems actually knight d4 is a very logical move. And now suddenly there's e5 and knight e4. Like this. And then there's knight g4, knight f6. So actually Emil Sutovsky, who is now director general of the FIDE, he was a very strong GM. He played a very nice attacking game there, so you can check it at the database. Sutovsky against Baron Tal. Yeah, so it's really tricky. I mean, there are plenty of ways how you can change the order of the moves. You can, for example, this position, you can start with making a castle first. Here, for example, bishop g7, which I've tried also myself against good GMs. For example, I play short castle. I don't play this move h3, and let's say black is rushing with move e5. So now the question obviously is, why should I waste a tempo on h3? Because I mean, black, maybe he's not going to play bishop g4 anyway. So I can still try to make work a3. So let's say something like a3, queen e7, b4. Typically, this is very dangerous for black because you play bishop a3, knight d2, and knight c4. And usually, it's not advisable for black. But if black doesn't do this, he plays something like knight f6. There is this idea, you can either try to force it with bishop e3, or another idea, you can play like this. Knight b3, and then the queen goes to c3. Yeah, so you can still try to make it work without playing the h3, but I mean, you might play against a player who actually will play bishop g4 and take on f3. But from my grandmaster experience, when I played against other GMs, almost nobody plays bishop g4. So that's what I started to think. Maybe this h3 is not really a mandatory move. And when I started to explain my history about this line, I did mention that Magnus Carlsen was playing with black this line at the World Championship match against Fabiano Caruana. And it was really interesting that I believe in 5th or 6th game, it was the 3rd attempt for Fabiano. Here he actually tried, wait a second. Yeah, castle, bishop g7, and rook e1. And then there's the most popular move here, e5, because after knight f6, I did say, I mean, that it is sort of equal, but there might be some problems. But e5 is by far more popular move right now. And there's this amazing opportunity for white to switch to this position. Bishop takes on c6. So again, b takes on c6, white plays c3, d4, some sort of an English opening with great prospects. A rook on e1 is placed perfectly. And after d takes on c6, we play d3. So the question is, isn't this the same, right? I mean, white has played rook e1, which might not exactly be such a great move. So instead of the h3, he has played rook e1. On the other hand, black has rushed with e5. So it gives white immediate prospects start to play at the queen side. Another interesting idea I've seen actually people employ, they try to play knight c3, knight a4 first, something like, I'll try to present it to you, something like queen e7, knight c3, knight f6. If you can try to make it work, maybe it will work for you. Let's say, I'm not sure at which moment was it. Maybe it was here, b4, and you can actually cause some additional problems with knight a4. Yeah, now I'd have to recollect at which exactly moment this knight a4 might work, but this is the standard approach in this line. While I still have some time, I'll try to very shortly explain the pawn structures, because that's what I promised. But I mean, this is such a fast-paced webinar that I have to fit in 1 hour. All of the Rossolimo database, that's a very difficult task. So if I rush forward with something, I apologize. I mean, it's very, very difficult to explain everything in detail. So I hope at least you will have some better understanding, at least how to play the Rossolimo. One of the most crucial positions, the pawn structures, is this one, which I already explained to you. So you might see something familiar. that standard, when you reach this position, by standard, you try to play a3, b4, force black to take on b4, but black might actually positionally sacrifice the pawn on c5, which was actually played a couple of times by Magnus Carlsen. So that's rather tricky. What was else there? Yeah, this position I covered already previously. Then typically for white, it's very easy to start a kingside attack. I believe that was in the bishop takes on c6, b takes on d4 line. White usually relies on his piece activity, and if black is pushing the d pawn forward, it creates just additional weaknesses, and for white, it's almost always easier to play it out. Yeah, so this position I had covered. About this one, yeah, this position usually arises when a black plays the main line in the g6, bishop takes on c6 and d6, and white pushes for f2, f4. Typically, black intends to simplify the position with f7, f5, because usually white has a couple of rooks standing there, so there is some pressure. So he tries to simplify the position. He has something like a bishop on e6 standing, and he tries to push f7, f5, exchange a couple of rooks, and thus solve his opening troubles. I'm not sure why I actually had drawn, yeah, b3, a4 was to close all of the action at the queen side. So when you play f4, you focus your attention at the king side. So there's essentially two plans. Either you play at the king side by f4, then it's this bishop g3, e5, knight e4 idea I mentioned to you about, and try to do some damage, some real damage at the king side, or you don't touch it at all, you don't push f4, and you try to play a3, b4, which was covered in the previous example. Yeah, and this arising position is from the Morozzi bind, but it's today it's not so popular. When I wrote the database, it was quite popular because Fabiano Caruana had played it against Luka Lenic, and there were a number of games at the time. But I checked it. I mean, nobody really plays it out, so this is not really that important. I mean, the most important pawn structures is this one and this one, right? So very quickly, that's it. I mean, yeah, that was like very shortly try to squeeze in 1 hour all of the theoretical explanation. I hope I more or less did it okay. I apologize if I something explained it very vaguely or quickly, because I had to manage to do everything. And now we can try to do the question and answer. So now this is the moment when you can try to get real answers, because during the theoretical part, I had very little time. I tried to check in what you are writing, but since this is a very fast paced, I did not have so much time. So how do we do this actually? So where's the question and answers? Grigor, are you there?
Yes, of course.
So how do we do that? How do we select the questions from the question and answers?
So now people will start writing questions, and I think that it's better to have them in the Q&A section.
Okay.
If you want, I will select some of the questions for you. If you want, you will pick the questions.
Yeah, so there's one question. Pushkar Dere is asking, he's 2,250 plus, and if he's asking if he should keep the Rossolimo as his main repertoire, or it should be something else. You know, I cannot answer you that, because you are the one who is making this decision. It's very important that you are playing the openings which you like. So very often I recommend for people choosing the openings which suit their playing style. So if your opening approach, if you like to play more positionally, I believe there's just nothing better than the Rossolimo against the Sicilian knight c6. There's just, I mean, maybe the Alyapin, but Alyapin personally, I'm not a big favorite. So I think that that's a good bet to stick with Rossolimo. So there's another question. Yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention Shangotip, I apologize if I pronounced your name wrongly. He's asking what is the best anti-Sicilian lines against knight f3 e6, the second move e6. Yeah, this is something where I also feel as an expert, because when I was writing the database for modern chess, in the beginning, I didn't really understand that it's going to be a trilogy, but it sort of turned it out, and it was the logical way to do it. I've written my third database for modern chess, specifically against knight e4, c5, knight f3, e6, and I recommend playing g3. And you can find it at the Modern Chess website, and it's there. I was very proud. I mean, I'm proud of all of my databases because I invested so much time in all of them. I tried to make them quality work, so it was very important for me so that you are happy about it. And specifically against e6, yeah, there's another database, so this one is not it. There's some other questions. There's a question, is there a variation in which knight d4 works for black? I'm not sure to which position do you refer. I mentioned it, this line, right? I'll show it to you very briefly. There was this annoying line, sort of annoying line after bishop b5. Which line was it again? So yeah, e6, castle, knight e7, rook e1, and now knight e4. Yeah, this is probably the best attempt when black can actually play knight e4. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I did mention in the webinar that in the theoretical path that this is quite a good attempt from black to equalize. Where is the? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have to again open the chat. Sharunas Šuskis, oh, there's another grandmaster looking at us. Hello, Sharunas. With reference to g6, bishop takes on c6, b takes d4. Aha, yes. So Sharunas is a well-known GM from Lithuania. I'm very happy that you are here with us. So he is asking if bishop b5, g6 here, d4, bishop g7, d takes queen a5. If bishop d2 is not an improvement, right? If I hope I got your question correctly. So with the point to play bishop c3, I'm pretty sure I had look at it, had look at this when I was doing my analysis, but there was something that I did not like. Unfortunately, I don't remember. Maybe it was knight f6. To be honest, I mean, I don't remember. I was looking at this, knight f6, e5, and maybe knight d5. Yeah, bishop d4 and something, queen b5 maybe. Yeah, I do not recall this, but I do not recall the solution, but I recall that bishop d2, I was paying attention to this because, I mean, it's very logical to play bishop d2, bishop c3, but there was something that I did not like. Maybe it simply takes and bishop a6. I don't know, but it doesn't mean it's not playable, right? I mean, as long as you like the position yourself, I mean, you can play it. Where we can download these games with my suggestions. Yeah, so that's very simple. You just have to get my database. There's an extensive analysis. I mean, of course, I could show you only a very small portion of the stuff. So I was mostly focusing on explaining the background, how I got there. So it's not like I blindly chose one continuation. I was like trying to sell you this. You have to play Rossolimo. You have to play Rossolimo. It's so good. So what I try to do is to explain the process, how I got there, because I not usually, but always I compare the lines and I try to come up with the best anti-Sicilian approach. Because I mean, I don't believe in the open Sicilian myself. Again, if you like the open Sicilian, it's totally up to you. So it's all about taste, how we play chess. There's some other questions. Or maybe you, Grigor, have found some questions, because now I'm scrolling them. Grigor, I don't hear you. You are mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear
Okay,
you.
I apologize. Now I'm reading one of the questions. Was the move 3h5 by Magnus a good move or just Magnus trolling?
I'm pretty sure Magnus was trolling.
Yeah.
I'll show you what the question is about. Yes, yes. But you have to understand that he played it in the last stages of the group matches when it didn't really matter. He already had qualified. So you refer to h5. I mean, this is something where I won't pay any attention in the theoretical discussion, even if Magnus Carlsen played it, because there's so many ways how you can play it out. I mean, I just don't see why I should invest time to explain where is the biggest advantage for white. I mean, maybe you can just play it something like castle, c3, d4, still some sort of grabbing of the center. I believe that part of the world champion strategy is a very good psychological play. So this is sort of like sending a message to his opponent. I can still play h5 and I can still outplay you. I think that's it. I mean, this is not going to stick. This continuation you're not going to see anymore at the high level.
So, Arturs, if you allow, I'm going to make a short message. You can find, of course, all the analysis on the website. The database is published there. So far, the database does not contain the pawn structures which were explained today, but we are going to upload them tomorrow. So tomorrow, the database about Rossolimo will be updated with pawn structures. And once again, I want to mention that each participant of the webinar can use the promo code webinar 0705 in order to get 30% of discount for the next purchase. And Arturs, if you want, you can just show the database on the website and how people can use it.
Yeah, of course. Right. Let me show you very quickly. When you purchase the database from the website, there is this, you have to register yourself there. There is your profile. Okay, that's my profile. And under your resources, you're going to have openings databases, and it should appear here. And when you click on it, it's actually quite a nice feature. I not really used it myself, to be honest, because I have ChessBase on my computer. But it could actually work when you, let's say, you are on a tablet, you're traveling somewhere, you just want to refresh your memory or something and check how you should play there. You don't need a ChessBase account. You can do it online. So all of the chapters are available here. Yeah, there's a nice picture of me. And then there's this very nice thing as the test section, which is something I wrote specifically for the database. In the test section, there are 2 tests for every single chapter. There are 9 chapters in the database. So that's what I try to do, 2 tests for every chapter. And you can try to solve them by making the best move. So here specifically, I don't remember what was the best move because I wrote them a long time. Maybe it was castle. Yeah, castle and d3. Yeah, okay. I failed my own test. No, but the idea was c takes 92, 93. That I remember at least, right? So maybe the execution was wrong.
So you should repeat your database.
Right. And you can go to the next problem. And I try to compose my tests as some sort of a reminder what you have just read. Because it's like refreshing your memory. It's not like exactly a tactical solution, but like a strategical solution. If your opponent allows you to do something, what was the core idea? So this is what I try to like use some sort of as a memorizing. And you can download the database at any time, of course. Here, download the PGN. You can download it. Here, there's update Caruana against Carlsen, all of my annotated games in the World Championship match, which had the Rossolimo, obviously. There's this update of the D4 move, because like I said, the original database included this rookie one chapter, which I was not very happy. So this sort of D4 substitutes the last chapter, and I was more happy and more proud about it. And yeah, and you can use it online, definitely, without the need of a chess base. Yeah, I saw actually one question there. What do you think? What is the best move? What is the favorite move? D takes or B takes on C6? It really depends of the person. Magnus Carlsen chooses D takes on C6. Is this the best move? It doesn't mean it's the best move. It's his approach. He's analyzed it in great depth. He believes in it. So he likes the rising positions. If you like B takes on C6, go for B takes on C6. I mean, I'm speaking now for you as a black player. If you like a different position, go for that position, as long as you are happy about the rising position. I'm not the one who is going to play you how to play it. I just try to give advice, and I hope it's going to help you.
So I think that we answered more or less all the questions.
Yeah, maybe one more final question somewhere. I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe somebody did write in the last moment. Somebody's writing about the code.
Yeah. Also, I want to mention something else. After Arturs, you can now use the opportunity to write your Twitch channel and your YouTube channel, so that people who are interested in your chess materials could follow you.
Should I do it in the chat?
Yes, maybe it's better to do it in the chat.
Free
as I told in the beginning, Arturs is already a streamer with very huge presence on YouTube and Twitch.
Okay, I hope I'll write the links correctly. So anyway, I mean, yeah, I started to stream recently, and I stream live. Obviously, that's the thing to do, and I plan to do in the future also some lessons to do online. So that is definitely the idea, to explain some stuff. So I'll try to devote more time on some pawn structures, some theoretical overview, explain some main games, some strategical questions. So I would be, of course, very happy if you would follow me. I'm a new streamer. Yeah, but
and one final question from Frederick Rin. What about third move D6? Isn't that also a respectable move?
Which move?
D6 on move 3.
Yes, that's a very good question. To answer it, I think it's a really good move for white because white managed to get advantage there. I do believe that. And that's something which I covered in my first database. So essentially, D6 is the anti-Sicilian, anti-Najdorf approach, which is the first database I was writing. And after bishop b5 check, knight c6, we get the same position. I did not cover it in this database. Maybe I should have included this as a copy, but I did not want to do this because there would be a chance that I would have two versions of the same line. So if I'll update the first database, I would have to automatically update the second database, and I just didn't want to do this. So this position is covered in the first database. It is completely playable. Yeah. Maybe we can, Gregor, do this, like adding this to the online version. I don't know. And,
yeah.
It's definitely should be there, but it's just different database. Yeah.
Yes. Right, okay, so just a second.
Yeah.
If there are some more questions.
Yeah. Yeah, the webinar about Najdorf, that is up to Grigor. No, but I can only do the anti-Sicilians because I've written 3 databases for anti-Sicilians. So again, short of the short advertisement, I did my very first database, D6 Bishop B5. I love this line. I mean, I analyzed it in great depth. So I believe in this approach much more than in the Open Sicilian actually. Knight f3, Knight c6 was my second database, Bishop b5, which we talked today. Although I mean maybe the intro was sort of very short, but I did try my best to squeeze it in. And the third one, the third database is e6 g3. I called it the Baltic variation. I took the liberty to call it the Baltic variation because there are so many players from Baltic states who are playing it, and I figured out it's a proper way to give it a new name. And there's other moves like a6, b6, the second move. All of that is included in the third database. So yeah, you can find it on Modern Chess website, and I hope it will really help you to understand better the anti-Sicilians.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, we are going to finish this
There's
webinar.
a question: how many attendees were there?
Okay, all the time there were more than 100 participants, but for more detailed analysis, we should check.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to explain to you some Rossolimo tonight, and I look forward to future webinars.
Okay, see you. It was a pleasure to listen to you.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you, really appreciate it.
All the best, and have a nice evening.
Yeah.
Bye.
Goodbye.